So it's 7 o'clock and we will begin the meeting. Welcome to all the assembled guests. This is going to be our only meeting, actually, it's our only public meeting in January. We're usually having the second meeting, we're having a meeting with Dick Rose to go over the applications for superintendent. So we'll be having an executive session with him, and hopefully we'll have some good news there after. So to start with, any comments from the floor?
No.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. All right, so first thing is the student report. Take it away, Lydia.
So the first recommendation I had was if the school website could maybe be updated a little bit. I find it easy to navigate, but the person who told me didn't, so.
Do you know what their exact concern was?
No, just.
Okay. All right, maybe I can catch up with you later on that one.
Okay. The other thing, I brought this up before, but then we stopped talking about it, so I just wondered if I could bring it up again.
Yeah.
An anonymous tip line for the school for if a student hears something about another student that could be harmful. And I know there could be problems with that because how do you know what's true and what's not? But I thought maybe we could just look into anything that's said just to see.
That is an action item for the future. That's on the
Okay.
list of things to do, so thank you for reminding us of that.
That's one of the things, just to fill you in terms of the threat assessment team that we'll be putting together. One of the tools that we were talking about in order to help with that process
Okay.
is having such a thing so that students could feel
Okay, good, yeah, I think that's a great.
uninhibited in making us aware of things.
Mrs. Hodges, because she works in both schools, not here every day. I was just wondering if there's anyone else someone could talk to.
On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Mrs. Hodges is here. On Tuesday, Mrs. Wood is here, and on Thursday, Mrs. Snell is here. So in addition to Mrs. Lenz, because we know program planning is coming up, and you've already helped us identify that that's an issue, there is somebody else here every day.
Okay.
Okay, so someone may prefer Mrs. Hodge, which is
Yeah.
wonderful, we would understand why, but if it was a true crisis, there would be someone to assist folks.
Okay.
And if people just let Mrs. Stetton know
Yeah.
the magnitude of what they're feeling, like how important it is, we would make sure we would
Yeah,
have
I'll
somebody.
tell the students that, because I think they all have it in their head that they can only talk to Mrs. Hodge.
Yeah,
about
no,
things,
they can,
so-
no, we have Mrs. Snell and Mrs. Wood are wonderful as well. So we have somebody here every day in addition to Mrs. Lenz.
The art supplies we already talked about.
Well, not everybody else knows, so this was a student request, and I was following up on it, and then the teacher followed up with Olivia on it, but the good news is because we're teaching a college and high school art class second semester, we have to have canvases anyway, so Mrs. Eggleston was already on it. It was good, it was one of those in-sync questions with time.
Yeah. A student was wondering if there could be a wireless printer maybe attached to the Chromebook cart, so you wouldn't have to walk to another.
Yep, we get that, we've asked for that, I talked to Mrs. Jones about this, and the technology isn't quite there yet to do that, so it is in the queue of things to do when the technology catches up with that request, so that it works seamlessly. You may have heard, our copiers sometimes are crazy and don't work well.
Yeah. That's just a
Sadly,
convenience.
'cause they're new, right, but we're looking at, and we're gonna have to do that in the future with one-to-one,
And
yeah.
I know it's like halfway through the school
Yeah.
year, but the lunch block 5A
Yes.
has 2 grades in it, and
Yes.
the lunch line is crazy long.
Yeah.
And then the senior lunch, I'm guessing just none of the seniors go, because there's only like 15 people in there.
Yes.
So I was wondering if there's a way we could weigh that differently.
Yeah, I wanna look at that, so I thank you for that, I've been in lunches
Yeah.
in my stint as interim principal.
Yeah.
Substitute principal, but, and it does that 5A, that block A lunch has more than the other 2. So I wanted to take a look at that, so I appreciate that, so I can know.
Okay.
Thank you. And then you had one more.
Yeah, and then I just, someone told me today, and I just thought it was a good idea and didn't want to forget it.
Yeah.
They were wondering if we could have a career fair, because I don't think we have one of those here.
Sure.
Where just like 10 careers, and this is just like personal, but
Yeah.
when I was like thinking about what my career was gonna be, the only things I could think about were like teacher and doctor. So I was wondering if we could have like other things.
Some others?
For
That's a great
students that
idea.
don't want those things.
Sure.
Can I ask
Sure.
a question on that?
Absolutely.
Are you thinking about career options that somebody might want to consider, or are you thinking about, like, businesses to be here for certain careers, or schools to be here for certain careers?
Just
What
like,
weight are you thinking about?
I was just thinking maybe like 10 like people in a career, like maybe like things like veterinary and stuff, just to tell the students about what that career
So
consists
students
of.
can learn about
So they can,
different careers
yeah, and
from
learn
their
and maybe
profession.
choose
Learn
what
about it.
path they would want to take.
Okay. I think that actually fits with the inspirational,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
we're
it does.
talking about.
Yeah, that's, and it's not a challenging thing to do. We have some folks we work with at the chamber who can help us identify those. So let's talk about that a little bit more if we could, because I think that's a great idea. I've done those before. I did those with my sixth graders when I was an elementary principal 1 year, but anyway. One of the things Olivia and I learned this week, and I just asked her if we could talk after this, is while we're working on things at the same time, sometimes it gets the communication a little jumbly out there. So what we're going to do is have Olivia do her report, and then I asked her if it would be okay if we could sit down so I could like kind of give her all the answers, so she could come and do the full report with everything. So we're gonna work on that and see how that goes. We'll give it a try. All right? All right. And I do want to talk to you about the career fair, because if we were to do such said thing, I think it would also be great if there were a couple of students who would be interested in helping to
Yeah, I would love to do
yeah,
that.
to work on it. Because the side bonus to that is you could also then start having some early contacts with some businesses and practicing some of those skills. All right, great.
It would also be great to go to alumni,
Yeah,
because that's kind of the inspirational aspect.
Yeah.
People that
They
sat in the
used to do
same
that.
classroom, you know?
yeah. And we'll get alumni to maybe come back and be the people who are in careers now. Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else on that?
Come find you during not social times.
Okay, then the next thing on the agenda is the board goals update.
All right, I updated it today because Mark sent me information, oh, now it's all like slow.
There, it's fine.
Oh, you got it,
Yeah,
okay.
it's going.
Send me some information from Mr. Rose about the superintendent search. So Mark, I'm gonna ask to turn that over to you. That's okay?
This computer is very
I know,
slow.
they're all
Yes,
big
yes.
long here.
Okay, well, you know, basically, you can read it, and it basically says everything that I would have, I mean, that was, I sent a note to the school show about the content of the discussion, so if you just want to read it quickly, and then I will, I think it's up there, so you all can read it, yes, okay.
Yep.
So has everyone read it? All right, the thing that I wanted to say is that Dick was very encouraged by both the quantity and the quality of the applications. And, you know, obviously, he only knows 1/3 of the applicants, so he's got a lot of research to do. But he said that by the time we get together on the 24th, we will have done that. And I've also offered to, where it would be appropriate, to go with him to visit some of the home districts of some of the candidates that he's, if it wouldn't compromise confidentiality and all that, because some people, when they apply for these things, it's not, you know, done publicly. So we'll kind of play it by ear, but we might be able to visit some of the home districts where possible.
The one question I had when I read this is, is the plan that we would do those district visits before we create the candidate pool? Or only for the people that we put in the candidate?
That is what
The
second.
The second, okay.
Yeah, you know, basically that will only happen once we winnow it down, except I think that in terms of winnowing it down,
Window.
whatever that's called. I think where there's questions in Dick's mind, and the districts aren't too far away, and it would be not, you know,
Right.
not inappropriate to do it, it might help him to give us a better, you know, feeling for the candidates, is what he's thinking at this point. It's very preliminary, but generally, we don't think about visiting districts. The last time we didn't do it until we had the 3 finalists, and we went and visited all 3 districts of or 2 out of 3, 'cause one freshman. So that's what the plan is.
Okay.
But, basically, it's pretty amazing that we got that many applications, because, we really weren't expecting to go above 15 at the moment. So this is really encouraging. And hopefully we can find a good candidate. Okay, any other questions? Okay, take it away.
Sure, so not a lot of time has passed. Excuse me. Gosh, I know how news reporters feel on TV when all of a sudden they get a tickle in their throat. Between December meeting and now, and we did have that long extended holiday break, so there's not an exhaustive or extensive list of other actions. However, under the goal of safety, our threat assessment work is in good shape, which means we can move on to said anonymous tip line, but we do need to have a policy regarding it. So policy committee, we need to have a meeting date to talk about that. So we'll do that later, but just so you know, that's something we're gonna need to do. In the area of curriculum instruction, the secondary scheduling committee work continues on. High school student and staff surveys are being completed. We have the alumni and the parent surveys next Tuesday. We'll be able to start, the committee will be able to start doing some data analysis of all of the surveys. The structure that we're using for the students, just as an FYI, is to bring them up during, opposite their lunch during guided studies. We worked with the juniors today. That went well. We're gonna work with the sophomores tomorrow, and then next week, the freshmen and the seniors. And we have a plan also for CT, our students who are in vocational education as well. So Ms. Evans and Ms. Hammonds are working with me on that in my substitute role, and so that's coming along very nicely. Under the engagement goal, the parent community volunteer, there's no new news there. The pilot is underway as we shared at the December meeting. Under the budget goal, the new budget forms have been distributed that has a checkbox for matching the request to the board goals. So that's been done. Under technology, we await still for the SSIP to move out of the Department of Budget, which is the governor's piece, not ours. So that's where we are on that. However, while we are waiting, the one-to-one professional development plan implementation will begin. Mr. DiPaolo has got that rolling. We made an announcement about it at our joint faculty meeting this past Tuesday, and the tech committee meets next week. So we're still gonna move while we're waiting for the governor to release funds again.
Okay, any questions, comments? I have one. I was just wondering, and it might be faulty memory, but I was wondering what if any progress is made in terms of mentoring program?
None yet.
Anything else, anyone? Okay, thank you. We're on to the education committee.
Here we see, here we Well, there, on the drive, there is. Well, there's just something, because remember we had discussed, we were just gonna keep general information pieces.
All right, well anyhow, so the education committee, which is the joint committee between the administration, board, and the teachers, has had 2 meetings, and the second of which was in December, on December 20th. And first thing I'd just like to report to everybody that I'm really feeling good about the meetings that we've had. I think it's been very positive and collaborative, and they were really trying to talk things through and come up with good solutions. So I think I'm just going to say that in my view, the overall atmosphere has been very positive, and I'm very encouraged by that. So just to give you, at the last meeting, there were a few things that we went through. We spent a lot of time talking about teaching assistants, and exploring the possibility of going to all teacher assistants rather than teachers' aides. 3 of the things that were mentioned in terms of reasons to think about doing that is that it's made a real difference for students where we've had a teacher's assistant rather than an aide in terms of student, performance and advancement. The teachers don't have to be in the room when there's a teacher's aide, so it gives us more flexibility in terms of staff. And also, it requires a 2-year program, a certified program, so that there's serious training that's gone on, so that they're really prepared to be assistants. Kind of things. The potential is that we might have 9 teachers' assistants if we decide to go forward with it once we fully explore it. And a few people are going to be exploring different things. We're going to be talking to Fonda in Johnstown that has an ongoing program with all teachers' assistants to see how that's going with them. We're going to be investigating pay schedules, so we know what the financial outlook would be for if we decide to go that route. And Stacy will be checking out how our teaching assistant experience has gone in kindergarten, just to give us some know from our own experience. We can look at that as well. And then also we'll be looking at, if we decide to pursue it, part of the thing we might be looking at would be possibly the district supporting the continuing education for teachers' aides to become teachers' assistants, to make it more available for people. So that was pretty much it as far as I can tell on teachers' assistants.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
About that, how many teacher assistants do we currently have in our district?
We have some that are certified as, but all classified as teacher aides.
Oh, okay, all right, so we don't have any.
We don't have a
assistants
category.
employed.
Correct.
Okay,
We-
it's all.
They're all teachers aides, but we do have a
People who are
couple who are certified teacher assistants.
Okay,
They're just, that, we don't have that job classification. That's what we're exploring.
okay, all right.
And so what we're looking at is the ones who have the certification that are working
Right.
to evaluate the difference that they're making versus what teachers' aides can do.
So how many teacher aides do we have? Maybe that's the follow-up question.
So that's the 9, 10,
We
9.
have 9.
Yes.
I would just say that's consistent with some of the discussion we had at the beginning of the budget setting process, so I would encourage us to keep going in that direction and exploring.
Okay, some of the other things we talked about is in terms of chain of command, making it more clear, especially to parents, but also to anyone that what the chain of command is in the district. Jen suggested that we do a tutorial through the parent portal app, so that people might get a clearer understanding of how it works and so forth. I don't think there was much else discussed about that I had notes about, but then we had a thing called operational procedures, and where we talked about who needs to be contacted in different instances, if there are different issues. So, the question was like, if retirees had insurance questions, who would they contact? Well, that would be Leo. If, and also to discuss, we should look at the window of time for response so that it's in a timely basis, so that people can make appropriate adjustments.
So we're gonna do a chart,
Okay.
for like a flow chart, yeah.
Specifically was raised is that apparently Benestar, who administers our Hartford supplemental insurance plan for retirees, they said that there were some changes and nobody knew where that was coming from, including maybe they wouldn't pay for physical exams anymore. And so these are the kind of questions that need to be explored and dealt with. Payroll questions, some of the questions, who should you go to for payroll questions? Who should you go to for personnel questions? Then there was a thing I made a note about, but I can't remember what it means. It's about the half-pay payroll
Right,
and about changing it. And I don't know, someone else.
that's okay, that's just, you just can give the topics for right now, this is one of the things we're looking at.
On the contracts, the question was whether they're going to be signed, and the teacher's contract should be signed anytime now.
Next meeting, right?
And are we gonna do it, are you guys ready?
That's what we decided, yeah.
Okay, good, all right.
And then the support contract was still being finalized.
Yeah. we
And I
said
think
that.
we're still
Yeah.
in that process.
So we added something.
And then we discussed observations, teacher observations, and that, we wanted to really stick to the 7-day timeline of report back after the observation has been done. And it was announced that all principals have been informed of that, and so hopefully that will be adhered to going forward. And that's all that I had. Patty, you're here as well as Debbie.
That's good.
Anything else that we need to?
I can't think of anything.
We also addressed the teacher coverage protocol, so we put in this year's contract, which has really been, it's worth a celebration moment, that if teachers have one of their free designated periods that's not lunch or planned, that we use them and they offer, if they volunteer to cover another class, if we have a shortage of substitutes, and there's a stipend that accompanies that. That has been very helpful. And again, people have had, we continue to be challenged with substitutes, as everybody on the known planet is. And sometimes the best recourse is to use some folks internally who have that availability. So we discussed that and we came up with the just agreed on the administrative procedures for that. But I gotta tell you, that's been a celebration. That should be a celebration. That's a win. That's a win.
Okay, any questions, comments on the education committee? Okay, moving right along, we have, let's put my glasses on, we have social emotional learning, school climate survey pilot.
Yeah, so
Wait, this is Schwaber.
the school was selected as one of 105 districts that will be participating in a pilot of the school climate survey, last year, an initial pilot went out, so your major city school district, Buffalo, Albany, and so on, did these surveys. Next year, though, all schools will have to participate in the school climate surveys. So this year, it helps us get our boots on the ground, figure out the little kinks that come with, a computer-based survey, which this is. So our social emotional task force is kind of spearheading this and moving forward. We did meet this week and we reviewed the questions that have been put forth by the federal education department. So we have what the questions are. We kind of went through them and kind of picked apart and who would be answering these. And I have a webinar that talks about the platforms that you can choose to deliver these surveys on. It's going to be way over my head, but that's okay. I asked Lauren Goldman to sit in with me so she could explain the big words to me. And so we're going to be exploring 2 different options, and that's on the 23rd. So the idea is that we will be rolling this survey out to students and to the community and to staff in the spring at some point, but there's it's more of the fine-tuning the technology end of it to get it out there. We're also, though, working on kind of providing information to families, like through our social media, through pamphlets, whatever it might be, explaining what this is, what this survey is, and how it's going to impact us, and what information it will give us, so people aren't surprised when it comes up in the spring. So we're trying to get ahead of it, of questions and so on. So we're working on all of that now. So it's exciting. We'll be a year ahead, so that's cool.
So the climate survey is part of ESSA, so it's going to be required under the Every Student Succeeds Act. So this is just a great opportunity to get our baseline data before actual implementation or actual administration. It's exciting. We were happy to be chosen.
Questions, comments?
So in reading the write-up, it said identifying an approved survey, but from listening to you, it sounds like the question set is the
Yes,
same.
the questions are basically the same, it's just how they're presented in which platform. Again, so there's different ways, they're all free at the moment, different services to get this survey distributed. So I guess it comes down to everyone is password protected, and so it's just what works best for us.
Now, first I would ask that maybe the board could see what questions
Yeah,
are in there.
absolutely.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, as I was thinking about this, does the state set criteria for minimum number of responses for things to roll up and that sort of stuff, or do we do that?
See, that's all the stuff.
Who sees the data? I mean, all that kind
We
of
see
stuff.
the data. So that's one of the things is which program would allow us how we want the data to be shown to us as well.
Okay.
So we see the data, but it also gets reported to the state level. Now, in terms of like who needs to take this assessment, I'm not exactly sure that we figured out, the state on that end has figured out exactly what they're looking for. That's why we're doing the pilot. So I'm hoping to gain a lot more information. For example, like what students. Right now, our the questions that we have, and I will gladly I'll share those with you. It's on Google Drive. The questions they start with fifth graders. So when we first looked at the presentation, I was assuming it would be a little bit lower in terms of grade levels. But looking at the questions, we're also like, I don't know. We were.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see. We went through all the questions. Like why is this question being asked? How are they gauging this? Why are they using a scale? So I can bring them up during the webinar, just to get their input of why certain questions are there. So I'm hoping to get more on the 23rd.
I would be very interested in discussing that more. Clearly, I haven't done any education, like surveys like this, but I've done a lot with employee surveys in work environments.
Yeah.
And some of the things that you really want to think about is how they roll up, what minimum number of responses before people can see the data results.
Oh, yes,
A lot of that kind of stuff you really need to do in advance.
Right. So that will be interesting, and I imagine based on the preliminary information I've been given, that is what's figured out using these programs. That's why you only have certain choices. Like we couldn't create our own Google form and be like, okay, take the survey. It doesn't work like that. So it is a little bit. It's on a higher level than that. So, but I will after the 23rd, I'll come back and I'll report out what I did learn or what Lauren explained to me that I learned, and go from there.
How many questions are there, or is that what
There
you're still
are,
trying to figure
well,
out?
it depends on the level. So the questions, and you'll see it when I send it to you guys, there are some questions that say high school only. Overall, all together, there's 73, I believe we counted, 73 questions, but again, not all of them are targeted towards your fifth grader or your 8th grader. So somewhere within there. So when we went through it, we went as adults talking through it. It took about 30 minutes. But then you think about, okay, well, some of the students who will be reading those questions, and because we're also thinking about how do we give the survey, when do we give the survey, with whom do we give this survey, as in which teacher are we proctoring the survey. There's a lot to go into it because you can see kids just click whatever, and so how do we make it meaningful to them?
Do they have different questions for the community versus
Yep,
students?
and I'll share all of those with you guys.
Right.
Yep, there's 3 different ones right now. That I found, and the parent one is buried in the student one, so we found that one. So I'll make sure you guys have it so you can take a look at them.
Thank you.
And I believe the origination of all the questions is US DOE, the
Yep.
US Department of Ed.
Yep.
So there's 2 different vendors that are providing the platforms. That's the decision point, just so you know, it's like Jen said, which vendor.
I was gonna say, what grades are you planning for this, or is it 5 through 12?
See,
or
right now the
just like-
questions are targeted 5 through 12, so I was actually looking for guidance from the state to tell us, okay, who are we giving this to?
Okay.
But right now, those are where the questions are, so I'm good with that.
Okay.
Can the district add questions if they want to?
Well, that goes back
That's a
to
good
the
question.
validity of it, because there's some things in there, they're like, why are you using those scales? Like, the scale would be like, most likely, unlikely, and we're like, that scale doesn't really pair with what the question's asking. So we made a lot of notes and kind of picked through it. For example, like questions like male and female, well, what if you have a student that's transgender? Like, that was a question that was like, is that legitimate? So, I have a lot of questions, and I think because it's a pilot, they're going to, pull the data and then say, okay, we're gonna change it, potentially. So we'll see.
It might be interesting to get some feedback from a goal area perspective for the district and things like that, if we're able to utilize that same mechanism for someone
Oh,
to get out of it.
Yeah.
Anything else? I just have one thing on, if it wouldn't push it too late, one of the things I think would be nice would be maybe to have some hard copies that could be distributed during the budget vote, because we've had real good results from some of those when we've had it, and it would just increase the response, from at least from the community and parents, hopefully.
And I'm hoping to see how they would recommend that we do that, because eventually it does have to go into the system somehow. So I don't know if I can pull a password and input answers. But we are looking at ways that we could do it during the budget vote and have perhaps a panel of computers and, you know, all ready to go. I have to learn how it's done first before we can decide what the best way is to do. Because like I said, everything is, it goes back to every user is assigned like a username and password, so I'm gonna learn, I have no idea.
It has to be electric, right? This is all electronic.
Yes, it's all
Yeah,
electronic.
No.
Usually it's one or the other. It's either
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
electronic or all scantrons or something.
Yeah, no, oh, but it's scanned, that was interesting. I don't know, but good, I mean, good talking points to bring up,
Thank you, and good luck. Okay, moving along to approvals. Could I have a motion for a consent agenda?
No,
Okay, which ones would you like to pull out?
I wasn't here, so I can't do this.
Okay. Is there anyone else, any other item that you would like to pull out? Okay, so I'll ask for a motion for a consent agenda from B through I.
Motion.
Huh?
Take I out so that your eyes are
Oh, okay, okay, so we'll do B through H.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll start with the minutes. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? We need a motion, I'm sorry, for the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Okay, now is there any questions or comments on the minutes? Okey-doke. So do we vote now, or do we?
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Scan.
Okay, the bills, any questions or comments on the bills?
I just had a couple questions of who people were. The junior library bill, I just didn't remember seeing that before. Was that for books or something?
Yeah.
Heritage Crystal Clean, are they a vendor?
What page?
It's,
It's A24, I think the first page of A24. Yeah,
here, I have it highlighted.
sorry, I wrote them down, so I'm not.
That's okay.
It's all right, we'll go to-
That's, maintenance, that's one of Gary's vendors.
So do we have a contract with them?
You have to see what exactly that was, because I can't recall exactly what it's for, but I'm pretty sure it's not Gary, so I can get back to you on that. Yeah.
And I think I remember Wildwood Programs being the special ed thing. Okay.
Yep.
And I assume Upstate Cerebral is the same?
another.
Okay.
Upstate Cerebral Palsy?
Yeah. I think treasurer's is separate. Yeah, that was all I had.
Anyone else on bills? Okay, I just have one, 3727, I think was kind of near the end, was HFM BOCES summer school. I don't think I ever noticed that before, have you?
Yeah, we only pay it once a year, so.
All right, so moving along to the treasurer's report. Anybody have any questions or comments on that?
The only question I had is, I couldn't remember what GFMN was, and it was a really large amount of money, so,
The general fund money market?
is that what it is? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, again, just one question, when can we start to expect to see our 1 to 2% interest rate?
On the new account, yeah, that was done in November, so on December's it should show up. So on the next.
I'm looking forward to it.
I had the same question.
Anyone else? Okay, next is budget transfers. Any questions on that? No? Okay, then HFM sub list, any questions there? No? Okay, surplus items. Okay,
The only question I had is, what if they don't get sold? Do we donate then, or what do we do?
Most of it is actually, because there can be confidential materials on those. We actually call a service, they come pick it up, and there's a certain level of destruction, essentially, with anything with a hard drive in it. And they do, I think it's a level 3 destruction, so they wipe all the hard drives, et cetera, et cetera. With desktops and things like that, because there is things that could still be on there, there's a liability aspect to repurposing them without taking the expense of wiping them clean, removing the hard drives and things like that.
So is the company that we give them to do that, do they donate them, or?
No, they destroy. They destroy. I mean, a lot of
So
these
they
things.
don't just sweep it, they actually destroy it?
No, they actually destroy it. A lot of the things down here, we're talking 20-year-old desktops, some of them with 5 1/4 floppy drives, the original switches. If you were
That
to
might
go,
be valuable.
if you were to, no, there's no like Mac 2s down there or anything, but I think there was 1 or 2 gateways, which gateway I think has been out of business for a decade. There are some interestingly
They're gonna be Christmas presents.
old pieces down there. This was really probably the oldest and the most defunct of what's down there. There is currently almost 3 full pallets, and there's probably 3 more that I just haven't had a chance to put together yet. There is a large amount of technology that just has not been gone through inventory and disposed of.
So when this is on the surplus list then, can somebody buy it without it being swept like that?
I think when it comes to the monitors and things like that, I think those can. I don't know if surplus, from a confidentiality aspect of it, the liability with that would scare me a little bit.
So it's not really surplus, do we have to pay to get it destroyed?
We have a contract through NERIC and HFM BOCES. They pick it up. I believe they essentially take harvest the precious metals and things like that out of it.
So they make money off of
Yeah.
it from that perspective?
They take, I mean, even cording and things like that, they're stripping the cord for the copper
Got it.
and things like that. So they're making money off of it.
anything else on that? Okay, certification for lead evaluators, any comments, questions on that? The change order authorization, any questions on that?
The only question I had was on the max. As I read it, it appeared like the max was by vendor. So 45,000 max of change orders the superintendent could authorize. So anything significant would still have to come back to the board,
Oh, absolutely,
right?
yes. And this is common practice.
Yep.
So there's a certain level, it's not too great. And as I noted in my notes, I think that although some of the preliminary work will begin in May and June, certainly the new superintendent will have the majority of the responsibility for accepting or signing off on these change orders. You would probably want to have some kind of communication structure set up. That would be helpful, so that way the board is informed in a timely fashion as the change orders happen.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Even though you're authorized as
Right.
the superintendent, that at least the board gets.
The board should be notified. Yep.
Can we make a friendly amendment to that then? To make that a requirement?
I don't think it would be done here. It
No.
would be, that would be procedures that you
Yeah.
set up with the new superintendent.
Okay.
Okay, so let's keep that in mind for, as we get closer to the summer. All right, then, motion was made and seconded for consent agenda from B through H. So, all in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Then on I need a motion.
I motion.
Second? Okay, you get a second? Okay,
Can I just go back to the one question on the general fund warrant you have for the Heritage Crystal? That was actually for the bus garage, and the purchase order said it was wastewater pumping and disposal.
That's
Thank
right.
you. That's why I hadn't seen it before. Okay.
So going to the reserve fund, this is the capital reserve that we actually set up, I think it was a whole year ago now, and we put it in the budget for this year, but we missed this step in order to be able to spend it. So now we're adding this to the bus vote in March to get approval from the voters to spend the reserve.
Can you remind us, for the capital program that we're going through, do we have to put money up front and then,
Yes, remember we took the fund balance and we
Right.
put some into this
it was
reserve.
like 700,000, so
Yeah,
750.
$750.
and then there's gonna be reimbursements that wind up happening along the way, so the
Right, after
end
the fact.
result to the taxpayers is much smaller than this. This is to front end fund it, correct?
Yes.
And we would get about 86% reimbursement from the state.
So we weren't able to actually use the money, we set it all up, but we didn't have this step in place when it was spent. So now we will.
Any other questions on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Okay, new business? None. Oh, I know what there was. That's actually under old business. which is not up to. I noticed in the minutes that the Career Pathways curriculum was supposed to be approved by the board in January.
We're just moving them all.
So I was just asking,
Yeah.
what is that?
We're just finishing them up, so we're in agreement back in February. We have some other ones too, some new courses. We're finishing on the syllabi of the courses connected to that.
Is that in February?
Yes.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to move into executive session.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.